Get ready for back to school with H&M. Enjoy up to 50% off mix and match basics, new denim styles, and more. Find their favorites for in and out of the classroom at your nearest H&M or on hm.com.
This episode is brought to you by LifeLock. When you visit the doctor, you probably hand over your insurance, your ID, and contact details. It's just one of the many places that has your personal info. And if any of them accidentally expose it, you could be at risk for identity theft. LifeLock monitors millions of data points a second. If you become a victim, they'll fix it, guaranteed, or your money back. Save up to 40% your first year at LifeLock.com/podcast. Terms apply.
Hello, everybody. This is Tony Ruggiero here. Thanks for tuning in, downloading, and listening to The Tour Coach. We're rolling through another crazy summer right now, another crazy season. There's lots of golf, lots of guys playing, lots of camps, lots of retreats, lots of travel. You know what that means? It means lots of great content coming to you. So thank you, whether you're a golf instructor, like so many folks that reach out and listen to this podcast, or you're an aspiring golfer, somebody just loves learning about the game, loves learning about how to get better. Thanks for taking the time to listen to The Tour Coach, because we've got lots of great content coming for you, okay? And if you like The Tour Coach, you're going to love Pro Work on YouTube. I want to remind all of you, if you haven't seen it, go to Bushnell Golf on YouTube or go to @TheDewSweeper on my YouTube channel and listen to, watch Inside the Ropes, behind the scenes with myself, Colby Touye, Mark Hackett, and a host of others. And you'll see what it's like to be a player of all different abilities, and watch how our team approach goes behind the scenes, inside the ropes, to find out exactly what the magic that your golf swing needs to pick up 10, 15, 20 yards or lower your handicap or get all the way out onto the PGA Tour. It's all there for you on Pro Work, just like it is here on The Tour Coach. So thanks for listening. We've got some great content coming. We've got some great discussions, some great roundtables, and some great guests coming your way this summer and this season here on The Tour Coach. And I couldn't do this Tour Coach without the following sponsors. They've been loyal to me. I'm loyal to them. I think it's one of the missing things in instruction and in our world, people that stick together, and I think that's why we've all had so much success. I've got to thank the folks at Bushnell Golf for their support and their sponsorship of this show, my teaching, as well as the Pro Work series. Vineyard Vines and the folks there, unbelievable. They keep all the dew sweepers looking good, myself as good as you can, and all of the folks at our retreats, and especially Shrixon and Cleveland Golf, Chip Holcomb, Eddie Dry, and all of the folks there. I mean, we couldn't do it without it. It's over 20 years I've been with Shrixon Cleveland Golf. I'm not going anywhere without that. Mason Prang and the folks over there in California take such good care of us. They've got the best product that you can find anywhere. So special thanks to Shrixon Cleveland Golf. And then finally, my good friend Mitch McConnell and the folks at McConnell Automotive, Buick GMC here in Mobile, and Buick GMC for sponsoring the radio and everything that we've been going on for all of these years. So we've got great sponsors. We've got great partners. And we're going to give you great content that's going to help all of you play better, enjoy the game better, or understand how to teach it and communicate it better. Sit back, get yourself a beverage, and enjoy The Tour Coach. And then when you get a chance, go check out Pro Work on my YouTube. You'll be glad you did. All right, so joining me here, we're doing this has been Content USA right here from LA. I think we're on the, Henry, are we on the south side, west side? We're on the west side. Brady said, anyways, and we're doing another round table from the Hizzy. Elar's over there laughing. Eric Larson, Justin Parsons, Jackson Koert, and Henry Diana HD. So we're getting a Caddies perspective tonight, and I think we've kind of been grinding all night talking about performance and things we can do to help people play better. So, JP, I want you to kind of jump in there. Somewhere during the last two nights, you had kind of a masterful thought where you said, hey, let's talk to these guys who are with the player every day, all day on the golf course. We're not able to do that. And find out what they really think about the stuff we do, as well as the things they've seen that are really good and the really bad. We don't have to make it all bad like that good coaches do.
Yeah, I think teaching golf and playing golf are two very, very separated things. I remember coming out my first first PGA Tour event I'd ever kind of been around was the 2012 Honda Classic, and I flew from Dubai to, I think probably Fort Lauderdale, came up to Palm Beach, went to the event with Claude Harmon, and Butch was still working hard. Tried to figure out where Butch was. He was in the there was a, Henry, you would tell us, there was like a trailer that the caddies used to eat in.
Sure, caddy wagon.
Caddy wagon?
Yeah, the caddy wagon.
So Butch was in the caddy wagon talking to a couple of the people that, the caddies that he was, players he was working for. And it was a real kind of like eye-opener for me, because there's the best golf instructor that I'd ever seen, and his conduit to, what was happening on the golf course was with the caddies, and I thought that was really eye-opening. And from that moment on, I've not only enjoyed my friendship with the caddies, but also valued their input, and they've definitely helped me to not screw it up, and made sure that we're kind of working on the same sort of themes. So I think, Tony, you're probably starting to think about what things could we do wrong, what things have we done wrong, and how is this whole thing kind of intermingled with player performance?
Well, for sure, intermingled. And as you were going through the recollections, I was thinking that all of the best successes, like if I look at the players that I would say I've done my best job with because we've had success and so forth, I would say in every one of those instances on the professional level, I had a really, really great relationship with their caddy, and I thought the caddy and I did great jobs. And Donald Cooper with Lucas, awesome, who'd been with him forever. For 5.5 years, Coop and I were crazy close, but he knew what I was looking for. He could relay that message. I look at Smiley, when he won. There was a young caddy out here, Aaron Alpern. I don't know if you remember Aaron. Yes. You guys, Aaron did, and then John Yarborough was with Smiley during our tenure. Sure. And I thought both those guys were vastly different, but I had great relationships with each of them and able to be real honest and talk. And I think that's important in what we do. And they're always really good to me with great feedback, but I'm sure there's things that they could tell us more sometimes, but they don't want to hurt our feelings.
Well, I would agree with that. It's just instruction, caddying. There are obviously a lot of similarities. So it's about reading the player, understanding their needs, and the better the teacher and the caddy can be on the same page and try to help the player, in the same way. But I always felt, in the years of me playing and then going into caddying and transitioning into caddying, and I took a million lessons. I taught and still teach. So, and I always still think that there's better ways than others, maybe, and to gather information and if you want to say dumb it down for the player, and just basically simplify the whole program. I think too many times you guys are so smart in what you do. You understand the golf swing to the nth degree, and sometimes a player needs that away from a tournament. Sometimes they do need it at a tournament. But I think it's your talents, your knowledge, and our ability to read the player, to know if they're uneasy, they're doubting what they're doing. There's a multitude of things that a player can be going through. So we're more of a sounding board. Obviously, we spend more time than you guys sometimes with them, and most of the time. So it makes it easier if we're on the same page.
So how long have you been caddying?
24 years.
24 years. Has the players' needs changed?
I would say as the players, how they're learning the game through technology, information and gathering information, the ease in which to get information. I think the player is learning the game differently, and I think that you guys as teachers, great teachers, are adapting to how these kids are wanting to learn or with the information that is out there. So I think it's, a great blend, and I think that's the art of what you do. And I think by me and Eric being able to converse with you away from them and maybe try to be on if you want to say dumb it down a little bit, to just keep their lake calm when they can come out, obviously in the U.S. Open here, and try and play their best.
Well, Henry, one of the things that Butch and I talked about through the years, we talked about when should you give them different ideas, thoughts, and stuff. And since working on tour a wee bit, I would often think that by Tuesday lunchtime, I really don't want to give them many technical thoughts. Mm-hmm. At what point in the week, if one of your players was working with a coach and he started giving them a load of things to do, at what point would you be kind of putting your head in your hands thinking this is not going to work out great, or has a coach given your player stuff on a Thursday and then he's played great? How much commonality do you see between technical thoughts and performance?
Great question. I would say in the times of playing and caddying and then watching you teach, or y'all teach, and I would say as you get closer to competition, the less information is better. I think once you have a week off, you have maybe a Monday to have a roadmap. Tuesday, really refine it. Wednesday, go with more feels, distance control, getting more into a playing aspect of and competing aspect, preparing for the shots that you're going to face in that particular week. I think, it's hard to make a blanket statement because there's times where you could give a player. Everyone's different. Yeah, everyone's different. A certain thought on a Wednesday that it clicks and the guy wins the golf tournament by 4 shots. So to just say a blanket statement, no, you shouldn't do this, or no, you shouldn't do that. But I think it's the art of what y'all do that makes you who you are, and being able to read the player, understanding the game enough, understanding the golf swing enough to really dumb it down so that they can compete at the highest level and hopefully win a golf tournament.
And Jackson and I, we actually had a similar conversation on the course today. And, this is Jackson's second time out with me at a major. And obviously, we've worked together a good while. But we were talking, and I said, so Ben's an amateur. This is his second. I mean, he played Puerto Rico, but the Masters in here are the 2 big first tournaments, right? Sure. And I said, was talking about how, Monday to Tuesday was different. But today, I kind of drifted back during the hole, just kind of let him do his deal. Only thing I ever asked him a couple times was where he was aiming. Told him I thought he aimed right a little bit a couple times. I think sometimes he gets feeling because he gets too open, then we fix it, and then he wants to get too close. But that's always been kind of my philosophy, and sure. Is and I remember back with Smiley, because Smiley would get where he'd want you to film almost every swing. Right. And I kind of learned during that, for me, for survival, it was best to have to pee a lot, right? And kind of ditch off to a portalet and then come back out, stuff like that, drift sure. back where you couldn't analyze. And I found, for me in that, he played better if I wasn't there every swing during a Wednesday. Monday, Tuesday was that was just how I figured it out over a few years of doing it.
There's a certain end of not being overcoached in my opinion, and I guess the stories with Jack Grout and Jack Nicklaus, where he saw him at the beginning of the season, and then maybe one other time during the season, and
when did that change where players started having to have people out all the time? I mean, because in the early days, sorry, Jackson, I took the mic away from you, but when did that change? And I guess that's what turned what we do, JP and Jackson, into a real business, being able to go out and do that. But for years, guys, like you were talking about the old Jack Grout story, and my old mentor Hank, when he first taught tour players, they just stopped into town
sure.
a few times a year.
Well, obviously everything got more convenient. When you think about it, back in the day, right. Hogan had to go across the Atlantic Ocean in a ship. It took him 3 weeks to get to Liverpool, and then he went up, played whatever. But, I think, therefore, they have more time. that time has to be occupied with something that they would perceive to being fruitful. So if we're around them, then we're going to try and add to it rather than detract from it. Sure. Going back to what we talked about in the car on the way to dinner tonight, it's like Butch always said to us, don't screw them up. So if you have time with them, it's like you go off to the Portaloo, don't screw them up, and you know that they don't need more stuff at that point. So you don't want to interject with more things. And I think that it's interesting, when you work with these players, you think, well, the things you don't say are often more important than the things you do say. And certainly in a major championship week, you look at players hitting shots and you look at the curve on the ball or the strike and you go, I would really like to say that, but probably shouldn't do that at this point in time because, they've got a little bit of confidence, maybe they're playing decent. Right. So that becomes a real judgment of coaching, and I'm sure we get it wrong, Henry, and I know you guys,
we get it wrong plenty too.
You guys get it wrong, and we're and the players get it wrong, and we're all trying to work
Absolutely.
for the common goal.
Yeah, there's no question. And I mean, I always remember what my mentor Bob Toski told me. He said, Henry, the only thing you bring to the golf course every day is feel, and your feel changes. It evolves no matter how good and how bad you're playing. So you want to always harness or focus on feels. And I think as you get closer to competition and versus mechanical thoughts and stuff like that, if you can always coach or even caddy or have the player prepare themselves in more of a feel aspect as you're getting closer to competition, I think that that's going to quiet their ticker down, and I think they're going to be able to play their best.
Henry, you worked currently for Tom Hoagie. He's a brilliant player, amazing iron player. You worked for Charles Hall III for 9 years, you said?
Yeah, 8.5, 9
so,
years.
as Charles, obviously a generational player, I would perceive him to be incredibly well-versed in the technicalities of the game. Was that a guy that was able to take the coach's stuff on a Wednesday, Thursday, and still be able to play golf, or what was his? Because I've gotten to know Charles, not the way you would have known him, but he seems to be able to get all that stuff in his head and then dumb it down and play golf with it.
No question, and I mean he would be the first to admit that. We always joked about if anyone, if a guy said he had all the answers, it'd go the other way. So. But he was always, obviously trying to gather as much information, and he would, we would try to dumb it down as much as he could. And even though he hit a lot of golf balls and, he loved it, and I don't think it hindered him. I just think that at times, and he would, I think self-admittedly, as, we worked together later and longer and more years, that he focused more on the short game and more, got more engrossed in the putting. And, but I think his knowledge of the game is as good as any player that obviously is playing the game. So
he's interested. He loves the golf swing, and
sure.
He loves the technicalities of the golf swing and how it works. And to some degree, that can be a weakness for those guys because they get into the finer details and to your point, get away from the scoring.
Sure, absolutely, and just I would say. It wasn't a criticism, but I would say that he practiced, and I was the same as him when I tried to play, was working more on form versus hitting shots, practicing, both directions a little bit more, and versus just being more working on form, just trying to draw the ball, just try to do certain things. So I think that would be one thing that I've certainly learned from caddying and standing afar after I quit playing, and I think that the best players are more organized for sure, and they have a plan, they have more regiment, and there's a reason for success, there's a reason for being mediocre, and there's a reason for failure.
Well, I'm watching one of my favourite caddies making some milkshakes here, and he caddied for Anthony Kim, who was definitely a generational player. Had an unbelievably efficient, powerful golf swing. Incredible iron player. I'm going to get him to sit down here and talk a little bit about Adam Schreiber, who is a great coach, one of our great friends here, and obviously a very technically astute golf coach. We see him with Sam Ryder, and I watch Sam hitting these incredible like left arm shots with his right arm across his left arm, and he stands up on these little Bosu balls and he does his bits and pieces. But I am going to coerce Eric Larson to come and talk a little bit about Anthony Kim in a moment. He's still stirring a milkshake over here to my left.
I'm waiting on my milkshake, though, because there's been a lot of great parts of this week so far. That's very near the top. One of the things I want to ask both of you guys, and we'll start with HD, and this is not a naming names type deal. This is more of like a things that happen. So, like, when a player's not playing good on Wednesday, over your years of experience, what are some of the worst things you've seen teachers like me do to try to fix it with their players? That you just know from your years of experience, when you hear it comes out of our mouth or we say it's our idea, you in your head are like,
Yeah. Oh, I would definitely say, even for my failures, that, just simplifying the program, simplifying the process, refining your fundamentals. The natural instinct is to overteach, overcoach, over-caddy, tell too much. I'm as guilty, and that's what I've learned through the years.
So when you say overteach, over-caddy, let's just say over-caddy, like I'm thinking from a teaching prospect, that's like, and I remember doing it, I know I've done it, where like things start going wrong, and I think I got to keep giving you an answer,
that's
right?
Exactly right.
Right?
Yeah, for sure. And, and that's the art, I think, of our job. Mm-hmm. And the relationship, and the longer relationship you have with the player, that, it's obviously a marriage in a lot of ways. But if the better you can read your player, the better that, so that you can say less. These guys are out here for a reason. They're the best players in the world. And the better that you can have them play by instinct and feel and versus mechanical thoughts, I think they're going to get the rest of the way, and they're going to succeed because they've proven it before and they'll prove it again.
So, and this is where, going back to like some of Butch's stuff, to some degree you could imagine that what we do and what you do, there'd almost be like a juxtaposition with
absolutely.
Like, you're there trying to get them to free up and be feely, and we're there trying to refine all the fundamentals. And I think that's the genius of Butch, where you create relationships with the caddies, so we're all kind of working on the same page. Sure. And I think that works really, really well when we all come together and we can kind of figure it out.
Absolutely, and it's not a knock to a teacher, or a lot of times that happens, but the caddy is out there spending more time than the teacher under the gun. Most time the teachers go home, the competition starts. We're the only one really obviously seeing the competitive side, and there are things that afar it would be easy for you and Tony and Jackson to see than say even us. So I think that's maybe not a detriment, but it would be a help if coaches could be, see more competitive rounds, more competitive shots versus range work. Yeah. I think that it pays a bigger dividend, I think, in the end, and I think you could even, it would improve the whole situation, and I think the caddy player-teacher relationship would just even improve that much more.
Well, we have a few generational players. I think Lucas Glover is close to it, Harris English, but Anthony Kim is definitely a generational player. Schreiber and him, Elars, you worked very, very hard with those boys. How would you, because obviously that we're dipping back into the past like 10, 12, 15 years ago. Great mechanics, great technique. Still a field player, or what way did that all work?
Well, first of all, Adam Schreiber worked with Anthony Kim since he was 13 or 14 years old, so he's basically been his only coach, and had video of him from when he was a kid all the way up till I was caddying for him, so it was kind of interesting to see the progression over the years, but great fundamentals, field player. Sometimes he'd get off sync a little bit. Adam would straighten him out. But Anthony worked really hard off the course at times. People wouldn't believe it, but he'd come to tournaments prepared a lot of times and then not work as hard at the tournaments. on when I caddied for him. He did a great job with him. But the misconception with Anthony is he didn't work at it. No, he and I don't think a lot of people are doing it with the medicine balls and stuff. Bands and stuff, yeah. And, I mean, it was fun watching him work as hard, and the results weren't as good, and then he got injured, and he was fighting the injuries more than anything the last year I caddied for him.
Did he miss hit it that much?
Not very much. No, sometimes the putter would go cold. But he had all the shots. I mean, there really wasn't a weakness in any of his shots because he could hit it high, low, left, right. And his short game was really strong as well. It's just a matter of how much time he would put in preparing for certain tournaments. As the second year that I caddied for him, I don't think he worked as hard due to injuries and what have you. But most talented individual I've seen yet.
That was a lot of good info there. I'm still kind of taking that in. So, HD, I'm going to go to you with this. So you talked about importance of us watching play. You think it might be better if we came on Wednesday instead of Monday and we watched them warm up on Wednesday, play 9 holes, and then watched them play Thursday, Friday, and go home?
Absolutely. I mean, there's no. I would definitely agree with that. And that's not a criticism. I just think that it's more beneficial for teachers, caddies, just to see in competition. The range is one thing. And like we always joke that, the second man on the putting green flies private. So, I mean, just being able to handle it, and how do you react under pressure in those situations like tomorrow in the U.S. Open, when things are going wrong, and, how much do they change, their tempo, their alignment, their tendencies of whatever they're doing in their golf swing that you believe, that they do under pressure, and they're magnified by pressure, and pressure makes you do things that you normally wouldn't do on the range on Tuesday. And that's what I feel. And I definitely agree with that. I think it would be an instructor, you'd be better served to come and watch and observe when it really matters. Because, I think you'll get a greater judge of what the tendency of the player is.
Well, it's interesting you say that. I mean, from, Eric and I work for Harris English, and like Harris definitely benefits from growing confidence on range sessions, and play. Everyone's different. Henry and I understand that.
Everybody's different.
Like when Harris does a range session, hits like some good wedges, you can always see him walking away, Eric, and he's happier with the whole process. And I think if he pitched up on a Wednesday, or let's say I was only there on a Wednesday of a major, he's not like getting that building thing. Like he pitched up today, and he just said, goodness, I pretty much feel ready to go. I'm just going to go out there. I'm going to, do my putting drills, go out, walk a couple of holes. You guys had a couple of different bits and pieces you wanted to get through. But I think Monday, Tuesday helped him to get to that point. Often, I do feel like, we're kind of like an afterthought. I'm leaving on Friday. Tony's leaving on Saturday. So you think to yourself, well, like if Monday, Tuesday don't really matter that much, like what is our like true role here? And again, I think everyone's a little bit different in that regard. And sometimes
really, not to interrupt you, but I agree with that. I just maybe don't want to misconstrue what I'm trying to say. I think maybe just being able to watch a little more competitive rounds versus practice and preparation might, have you look at the game through a different lens when you are working with these guys.
And I'd say this, that's why I'm just I've done this at various times, is especially if, I don't have 6 guys, but you're in one of those years where you got 1 or 2 guys or whatever. Like I'll just pick some weeks where, you're watching a player go, and like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, everything seems good, and you're trying to figure out why they're making cuts or barely missing them, but they're like, when they make the cut, they don't do much. That's where I'll say, hey, this week I'm going to come in on Wednesday and watch Thursday, Friday, or whatever, I've changed that. I've tried to rotate that through during the year, and I mean, it's just kind of worked for me. But I've also not. I've had a couple times where I've had 4 or 5 guys, but fortunately or unfortunately, however you want to rate it, I think it gets harder the more guys you have to be flexible with the type of schedule where you can react to what an individual needs.
Yeah, and a microcosm of that, talking about giving golf lessons, for where I am at Sea Island. Like if I've got 30 minutes with a player, I'm going to look at his golf swing or her golf swing, and I'm going to give them some swing instruction. And I'm in a fortunate position where I got an hour and a half with people or 3 hours and sit together in the office, talk to them about what's going on, and then all of a sudden it's the bunker play and it's nothing to do with the golf swing. And I think, to some degree, like what you're talking about, when you don't see them play,
right,
you just go back to the golf swing all the time, and
sure,
then the instructor just becomes, he's just going to give me swing lessons.
Sure.
And that may or may not be what they need.
Sure.
And maybe it's a flighted shot into the wind, or it's some sort of shot off the tee that they need. But
right,
if you just go to mechanics all the time, I think it weakens the whole process.
I totally agree. I don't have enough time because you're the best in the world at what you do, and the smarter you are about the game, and y'all are so well schooled about the game, the golf swing. You know how to dumb it down, and I think it's just our communication as caddies, the knowledge that we have, the little things, the intricate things that we see possibly in competition. But there's so many situations where a guy was lost on Tuesday, or Scott Hamilton did something great, or even a multitude of teachers that helped in some way and got these guys squared away so they can go out and play. And that's the most rewarding thing for y'all, I'm sure.
We're going to wrap this up with comments from the great one.
Well, I've been fortunate enough to work for some very good players, and every situation is different, like JP was saying. But Mark Calcavecchia, Ken Green, they both worked with Peter Costas, and they didn't see him a lot, but when they did, it always meant a lot to them, and they could talk to him on a phone and key on something. He wasn't out there visible as much as JP is or Adam Schreiber was, but it was interesting to be able to see how he would just give them a few things to key on, and they would run with it. And obviously they were great players back in the late 80s, 90s. Calc had a great career. Jeff Overton worked with Craig Harmon. He would see him once in a while. Craig would never travel. Once in a blue moon, he might come to the Players' Championship, but he was very good for Jeff. Jeff didn't need somebody out there all the time, so every situation is different. With Harris, when I first started with Harris, he had a few different golf coaches, and he was searching a little bit, frustrated. And fortunately enough, Justin Parsons came to town and got him right on track, and changed everything. And Justin and I formed a great relationship to be able to talk about Harris and how he's progressing from day one. And it's been a great team to watch Harris grow as a player and a person, and then he unfortunately got injured, and it's been another uphill battle again. And I think we got him on the right track again, or I should say JP. I'm just trying to do my job. But to have that communication with a golf coach as a caddy is, I think, very, very important, because we can give him a lot of good information.
You got anything you want to add to that?
No, I agree. I mean, it's just, I just feel that, what you do, and, for the people listening, I think that, what they can take away from it is obviously to have a solid foundation, simplify your program, have regiment of what you're doing, refine your fundamentals. And I think that, if you can simplify any game, or try to simplify the game, you can make it as complicated as anyone has made it. But I think that over the long haul, you're going to see more success than failure.
Parting words.
Great to have Henry and Eric with us. The Caddies, they've knocked their backsides in They've got long weeks. You know, they don't travel private planes. They're a big part of the success. Would the players be as successful without them? Possibly not. Would they be as successful without us? Possibly not. We don't really know. So we just got to continue to do our best. So here's to them.
Jackson, parting shots.
No, that's great. We need to hear more from them.
No doubt about it. It was good. And then lastly, just thanks. I mean, I think the whole thing is it's teamwork, right? Like, I thought what you said, Elar, was so good about how, you know, you formed such a good team in HD and the guys I've been around. I mean, every one of the really good, fun success stories, there's been like 3, 4, 5 people involved. Like, and you really, everybody hugging when something good happens. That's kind of what it's all about. And, yep. Guys, we're starting the fun part of the week tomorrow, but thanks, Elar.
It's their part of the week, Tony. We can kind of chill out now.
Oh, yeah.
Henry's drinking water, Eric's drinking milk, and we're drinking wine, so they've got work to do. We're
is that not the way it's supposed to be?
Correct.
Thanks, guys, for everything. I hope you enjoyed this edition of The Tour Coach and this conversation that we brought to you about playing, learning, and teaching the game of golf. We'll be back next week with another edition of The Tour Coach. In between now and next week, make sure you follow us on our social channels. You can always find me at The Dew Sweeper on Instagram, or go to our YouTube page where you'll see a scene and a video from my teachings daily on our YouTube channel. You can find that by looking up Tony Ruggiero and the Dew Sweepers on YouTube. Until then, make sure you follow and check out Everything Tour Coach and all our sponsors, Srixon Cleveland Golf, Bushnell, Vineyard Vines, and Buick GMC. I'll be back next week to help all of us appreciate, learn, and enjoy the game of golf.